Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel. So just a little recap. Recently we have been looking at law. Animal laws within the UK. So we've covered quite a few, and today we're going to be covering the Performing Animals Act of 1925, which is seriously needs to be updated. Okay. So, performing circus animals is a thing of the past. Like I've mentioned in other videos, it's very illegal in the UK to have any animals in a circus. It would have been the only time people could have seen animals from the wild. We are talking about the days where zoos weren't really open up to the public. They were known as private collections. So the only way that people who weren't posh and didn't have a lot of money could see a wild animal was within the circus. So nowadays there is such good media available because technology has improved. So all you have to do now is go into Google and Google images of any wild animal that comes to your mind, and you can see what it looks like, and you can even see them in their natural habitats. Which I wonder what's going to happen in a few years' time, maybe 50 years' time, when our kids and grandkids sit down and they potentially Google, because Google might not even exist then, but I doubt it. They Google these animals and what kind of habitats they'll see them in, because I seriously doubt that they'll be in their natural habitats if things keep going the way that they are, because unfortunately we are destroying this planet and we need to stop, and we all need to make slight little changes. And like I said, I am going to do a video on how you can make tiny little changes that aren't really going to affect your day-to-day routine all that much, but will help the planet in the long run. But that's for another video. So now this act only seems to apply to animals with a backbone. So a backbone, a vertebrate, so that's anything like mammals, birds, amphibians, anything that's really not a fish, although there are some fish with vertebrates, and insects, generally. So reptiles are covered in this as well. So this act only seems to apply, it applies to circuses, cabarets and the film industry. And it covers inspections, regulations, training, exhibitations, the use of drugs and the killing of animals. And contamination, accommodation and many other areas of welfare these animals need. So no one is allowed to train or exhibit an animal unless they are registered to do so. So that involves even like dogs as well. That's why people do train their own dogs to do basic things, but for other things you would go to a qualified dog trainer. I do have a qualification in dog training. I say qualification, it's technically in animal management, but dog training did come in under it as a module. If you don't believe me, you can check out the Unity of Life's Instagram page and you can see my animal related qualifications on there. So every local authority, so your council, must keep a copy of this act. I seriously doubt that they do, because the council are, especially in West Cumbria, are a huge pain in the backside, and they're thick as two planks, and I wonder why we have them and why we pay taxes on things and things don't get done and don't get sorted out. Don't get me started on that. Anyway, everyone who is registered to train or exhibit any animals may be given a certificate. The performing animals must be contained in a clear and suitable environment. Expectations from an application of this act. So this act shall not apply to the training of animals for the military, the police, agriculture or sporting purposes, or the exhibit of animals, any animals so trained. So sporting purposes, in case people aren't aware, it would be things like horse riding and potentially agility for dogs. When I say horse riding, I mean more like show jumping, dressage, racing, that type of thing. Appropriate measures will be taken to protect the animal in an emergency, such as a fire. So basically, how are you going to get that animal out of a burning building if the building does set on fire? And so that involves things like having the right equipment, so like fire extinguishers or fireproof blankets. You must register all the animals you wish to train or exhibit. Health and safety checks must be done for both animals and their handlers performing animals registration. So this isn't like, it shouldn't apply to people who, I don't know if you see these animal related charities that train assistance dogs and they do demonstrations with those dogs. I don't believe that they come under this particular act because they're only really doing a demonstration. It's more for people who are training animals for the purpose of the film industry. Mainly it's mainly the film industry these days, rather than circuses, because not there, are they? We just don't have animals in circuses now. So the animals need to be registered with the council or the government under the Performing Animals Regulation Act of 1925. So the legislation is designed to cover the use of animals in stage performances. So like I said, it is mainly films. There were some, I don't know if anybody saw these people, but I believe it was back in the 90s, early 2000s. There was these magicians and they had like tigers that they trained and they performed with them over in America. I can't remember what it was, but there was like an adult animation that I shouldn't have watched, but I did watch as a child. And they had like, it was like a family of white lions and they grew up, like they walked, they talked like we do, and they were performing lions in this circus. I mean, they lived in a house, and there was like this trainer and he would train them for these performances in humans. That's what that was based on. It was based on these real life magicians. I think one of them might have been killed by one of their tigers, or at least attacked on stage in front of a live audience. And I can't remember the names, but so if you do remember or know what I'm talking about, because you might not know what I'm talking about, you might think I'm a blithering fool, stick it in the comments. I'd love to read that, your comments and see what their names were, because it's gone out my head. Anyway, so the legislation is designed to cover the use of animals in stage performances and circuses as part of the exhibits. The premises and accommodation of animals must satisfy basic standards for health, welfare and safety for animals that you intend to keep. You will arrange for a veterinary surgeon inspection to ensure the accommodation is suitable. So the eligibility criteria, there's no restrictions on the ability of a person to apply for this registration. So you can see how this law still mentions circuses, even though it's a UK law, and now we don't have animals in circuses in the UK. But like I said, that's purely because it has not been updated since 1925. So that's like 90 odd years old. So it's coming close to being 100 years old and hasn't been updated, and it really does need to be updated and probably have tighter restrictions just to help those animals that are indeed in the film industry. So, what are the conditions of this registration? So, conditions, always check the fine print. The Performing Animals Act of 1925 requires any person who exhibits or trains any performing vertebrate, so any animal with a backbone, a spine, to be registered with a local authority, so your council. The term exhibit is defined as exhibit at any entertainment which the public are admitted, whether on payment of money or otherwise, and to train means for the purpose of any such exhibit. So you're training animals to entertain somebody, which is why you can get away with training your own dog to do basic things and not necessarily always have to go to a dog trainer, as long as you do your research and you do know what you're doing. So this provision applies to circuses and other situations, such as filmmakings, plays which involve animal performances, and probably even people who are on their Going Britain's Got Talent with like dancing dogs, because they're then training them for the purpose of entertainment. A copy of the registration conditions can be obtained on request. However, in summary, before registration is granted, the application must be able to demonstrate that the performing animals are obtained from a reputable source to minimise the risk of disease. We've been through the Dangerous Wild Animals Act. We've talked about breeding animals. Their act. So a reputable source is somebody who has bred an animal and knows what they're doing. And if you're gonna use an animal to perform, I suggest you don't have a wild and dangerous animal, because most of them aren't coming from a reputable source at all. And I still can't believe that people have lions and tigers as pets. I think that the Dangerous Wild Animal Act does need to be tightened to the point where nobody in this country is allowed to own such an animal, because it is downright cruel. So the appropriate measures will be taken to protect the animal in case of a fire or emergency, which we've already been through this. So an emergency doesn't necessarily have to be a fire, but it could be something that's gone seriously wrong with the animal. Maybe it's been ran over or it has a twisted gut and you need to be able to get it to the vet quickly. So there needs to definitely be health checks and safety checks carried out, which we've mentioned before, both animals and the staff, because if you're handling an animal and you're not well or fit enough to do so, that can cause a lot of problems. And it's the same for an animal. You don't want to make animals do stuff when they're not feeling very well. They're not going to appreciate it, and that's where it can become dangerous. So the cost associated with the registration is based upon the time spent by an officer from the council together with a vet, checking out your premises. In the consideration of the application, an invoice of consideration of your application will therefore be issued at the end of the process. So if you're going to apply for this, what sort of information / evidence are you going to be needing? Well, any information required to progress your application will be requested by the relevant application for itself, including heating arrangements, details of the animals, details of how the animals will perform and for what duration. However, dependent on the finding of the inspection by officers of the council or other authoritative person, such as a veterinary surgeon, Further information or clarification may be requested prior to granting the license or registration. So all that basically means is that they may say that you need a vet to come out and to check your facilities and your animals and give you extra evidence that your animals are indeed fit and healthy, and that your premises is indeed it's safe, it's secure, no harm is going to come to the audience, no harm is going to come to staff or the animals. And so, are the inspections or assessments? So we've already said there are inspections. So prior to granting a registration, an officer will arrange an inspection to establish the required standards are being met. So that's somebody from the council, not the police. So how long does this application take to process? Well, due to inspections by the officers of the council and possibly by others such as vets, it apparently could take up to 28 days to progress any application or to grant a license. And it will be confirmed all electronical applications, so things via email, anything on your computer or your phone, and that they've received your application. And if you have any questions, just get in touch with your local council. So, are you allowed to start trading before receiving your registration? No. You're not allowed to start doing any sort of trading until your application has been processed by the council, which, if you remember correctly, it will take up to 28 days. And if you have any further questions, then you go and speak to your local council. So, you will be pleased to know that that is the last video that we have on laws so far. One of the reasons I wanted to do the law is because, like I've said, a lot of people aren't really aware of what animal related laws we do have in this country and how that affects them. People just tend to ignore them, or they just don't know that they exist. So I just try to educate people that these laws do exist and you may actually be breaking them without knowing. Another reason that I decided to do these laws was because I've mentioned in the past, so if you've watched any of my previous videos or you've followed me on my personal Instagram or on the Unity of Life Instagram or on our Facebook page, you will be aware that I, in September, will be doing a master's course in animal welfare science, ethics and law. So law comes into it, and I am going to increase my capabilities and my knowledge of animal welfare, because there's always room for improvement and we can always learn. And in the animal world, and where laws are concerned and welfare needs and standards, it's constantly changing, so we always need to have a top up or a refresher, so we know that the information that we are providing is as up to date as it possibly can be. So I will keep you up to date with how my progress on my masters is going. That will probably be more likely on our Instagram, so keep an eye out for that. If you really like the content that I have been supplying now, because I think this is like our 22nd video potentially, so the content that you've liked so far, if you've watched it all, great. Don't forget to click on my face down here and subscribe. The rest of the laws will be in the playlist over here, and I will see you next time. Bye.